Well, Mat Nashed is a political analyst. He joins me now live from Beirut. So both sides are on manoeuvres, a foreign tour for one, and the RSF making approaches about integration. Could we be perhaps at a tipping point in terms of the balance towards the army now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely in terms of the political game that's taking place, right? So there's two battlefronts that are happening. There is the actual war, so on the military level. Then you have on the political level. So on the political level, absolutely, these are good days for the army, right? And the army, in a lot of ways, is beating the RSF at its own game, and that game is effectively trying to make the PR rounds and effectively try to rehabilitate its image. And so we see that the army has been able to do that through effectively evading sanctions on personalities at this point, being invited to the General Assembly, and making its rounds regionally at the same time. And then most importantly, we see that the RSF side, for as long as the militia has had political ambitions, and particularly after the fall of Omar al-Bashir in 2019, they've been pushing for political legitimacy and to be seen as an indispensable part of that state. Well, that goal has taken a massive hit, and has taken a massive hit due to the sanctions that has just been placed on the second in command of Daglu. And as a result of that, it's a political advantage for the army. That said, it's important to note the army still does not control Khartoum. It still does not control the capital. So while these are political points for the army, that doesn't necessarily reflect the power dynamic on the ground.
I was going to say, if we are at a tipping point, does this conflict still have some way to run?
It's tough. It's tough to gauge. I think the leverage over the RSF was never militarily. It was never military leverage, but it was political leverage, because we knew that the RSF always believed that if they invested enough money within its PR, that if it shook enough hands, then if it secured enough military territory for it to be effectively a fait accompli, that then it could acquire legitimacy accordingly. Not so different of how a number of war criminals have acquired legitimacy as heads of states in a number of other examples, or another number of other contexts as well. The RSF read the book, and they went by the book, and now they're actually getting burned by it. And at the same time, what we're seeing, though, is it could lead to one or two reactions from the RSF. We could see them double down more militarily. But it seems that even though they already have done as well as they can do within the capital, the question now is about holding on to the capital, which sure they could probably do militarily, but can they govern? And how will they be able to govern a capital city where now you're having debilitating sanctions on a militia that is effectively a family enterprise, hitting the second command, which is the older brother of Mohammed Hamdan Daglu Hemeti, who actually leads the RSF. So I think in a lot of ways, the political leverage now has been, that lever has been pulled by the US. It could be followed by other states as well. And, that could push the RSF towards the mediation table. The question now is about the army. Are they satisfied by having a political leg up? Or do they think now that they're being assigned the status of being effectively seen as the de facto heads of state, and no longer on an equal footing with the RSF, in their view, as how they might interpret the perception of the international community towards them? Could that embolden them to try to regain more territory now in the war, to try to secure a more territorial gains from what they've lost, in order to go into any mediation on a more equal footing in terms of the battlefront and the battlefield? That remains to be seen, but that's a very real possibility that we could see an escalation from the army side now that they think they've won the battle for political recognition.
Okay, Mat Nashed, live in Beirut, thank you for your insights.